All right, welcome in to a new edition of Carp's Corner. Pretty excited here as we are on the final week before college football season will be complete. So it's a little exciting. It's a little saddening as well. As we sit here and look at what the year was, we thought this was going to be a more unpredictable year in college football, and it was. We had two first-time entrants into the college football playoff. Cincinnati getting in as the first group of five school, Michigan getting in for their first time, winning their first Big Ten title since 2004. So there was a lot that obviously had to go into this college football season that made it really exciting and new and fresh. But then, a couple of people who are very familiar with it, a few schools in Bama and Georgia, which really stole the show and put together a performance, which kind of let everybody know why they were the premier teams and why they have been the premier teams in college football really this whole season. I mean, they're able to score the football. Their defenses have come around. In Bama's case, Georgia's has been good all year, but they really answered the bell and played big in the biggest moments. So we'll get to our college football playoff breakdown here. Next episode, we'll preview the game. We'll get into all of that for the national championship. We got some NFL news to talk about. Want to make sure we get into the Rose Bowl as well, because I think there's a lot that's going to be going on there that we need to pull out of, just not even with the game, which there was a lot in the game with Ohio State and where they ultimately went and how they were able to, turn their favor and turn their tide in the second half towards them against the Utah Utes. So that was obviously big for the Rose Bowl. But then also, sometimes you've got some disgruntled players and what they ultimately believe and how they think their world is ultimately constructed. And sometimes those guys will say something or tweet some things out when you're just like, maybe we should just put down our phone. Maybe we shouldn't try to put all this out there. And maybe we definitely shouldn't be doing it during a game in which, we should really be playing in. And so we'll get into some of that. Talk about the Sugar Bowl as well. There's some big news there, obviously, with injury of Matt Corrall. More news continues to come out about that. We'll dive into that. Big win for Dave Aranda and Baylor, even if they had to do it against Ole Miss without their starting quarterback. But we'll get into some of the thoughts. I'm going to dive inside Matt Corrall's mind a little bit because I think probably people are feeling a little sorry for him, and I'll explain my reasoning why and probably what he's thinking on the other side. Just listening to him speak and how he talks, I venture a guess that he's not looking for anybody's pity. And then also there's some stardom, sit-em. There's always the question in the NFL, what you should do during playoff time. Potential coach of the year candidates. I want to throw that out there. Some of the guys who I think are going to be in the running and who I ultimately really like for it. But starting off, I want to start with some positive news first before we get to the Antonio Brown bit that happened on Sunday. Cincinnati Bengals were in reset mode. They had, brought in Coach Jack Taylor. They're meandering through the wilderness again. And if you're not a Cincinnati Bengals fan, which I follow them, but I'm really not, the diehard, they've had long periods of time where they weren't very good. You look at all really of the 90s, then all of a sudden Marvin Lewis comes in. They're a lot better. He does a pretty good job. Andy Dalton, AJ Green, they turn that thing around. Then they begin to fade off. They could never get over the hump and ultimately win a playoff game, but they were getting close. They were right there and just always seemed to have some sort of misfortune, which kept it from them. And so that was a little bit disappointing. But with their victory over the Kansas City Chiefs, one where they came back, they were down, couple scores, battle back, go and get a victory. And with that, clinch the AFC North. Now that's big because the AFC North, it may not have, the top flight powers. It's not like it's got, Seattle. I guess Seattle is not very good this year. It didn't turn out to be, but last season was pretty good. San Francisco, who's been kind of average. And then Arizona and the Rams at the top. It may not be quite like that, but what it does have, it's got a cluster of teams in there that are all really good. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens, very solid team. They've battled a million injuries this year. So they're dealing with it in there. You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers who have dealt with a bunch of stuff this year, and it's the final season of Ben Roethlisberger. They're still, hanging around. All these teams, the Browns, as bad as they've been, they're still hovering around 500. Like all of these teams are clustered together. There's not that different in what their final records have been. And ultimately, they'll probably only be a couple of games separating them from them. But Cincinnati is ahead of schedule in their progress and their development. And why? Because Joe Burrow is ahead of schedule as a quarterback. You've sat here and listened to a lot of guys, pundits of different networks sit here and talk about Joe Burrow and how great he is and this and that. It was interesting. One of his former teammates, Mike Weber, compared him, a running back at Ohio State, compared him to Tom Brady. This was before he even ever started a game at LSU. I never really started at Ohio State, but compared him to Tom Brady. And now we've got, Steve Spagnuolo compared him to Tom Brady, throwing that out there. And this is a guy that's won a couple Super Bowls, played against Tom Brady, had success against him. And I'm not sitting here trying to lump all this praise and say that Joe Burrow is going to be the next Tom Brady, but he has the physical characteristics that he has worked. His skill set is immense because he's worked hard in the weight room. He's grinded. I watched him at Ohio State. I've watched this dude develop through high school. He's gotten infinitely better. It's a testament to his character. That's why his teammates love him. That's why they really enjoy playing for him, because he's got that cockiness, that subtle swagger that when you hear him say things, because he's so quiet and he delivers it in a way that isn't meant to draw attention to himself, you sit there and look like, did he really just say that? Is that real? Like, because it sounds like he's kind of cocky, but I don't really want to believe that. So Joe Burrow bringing that to the table. He's ahead of schedule, probably saved Zach Taylor's job, who potentially was on the hot seat, to start the season. Doing really well. And then the other piece of it, and I was a guy, and I'm prepared to eat a little crow on this. I thought they should have drafted the tackle in Penei Sewell. And, it's interesting for fans who care so much about fantasy, where offensive lines, like there's no way to score them. They're not a skill position player. Everyone's always concerned about it. Well, the reason why you're concerned is because of your quarterback and you want to keep him upright. And it was going to be imperative that the Bengals keep Joe Burrow healthy. You watched how good he was as a rookie. Then you watched him get beat up, and you didn't want to see that happen again. So that's why many Bengals fans who looked at an offensive line in Cincinnati that resembled a sieve more than a cinder block wall and said, hey, get this guy, help shore it up. You really haven't had that tackle position secure since you let Whitworth walk because you thought he was done. Newsflash, Whitworth's like 40 years old. The guy's like almost my age. Maybe he's 37, 38, 39, somewhere in there. I believe he was in my draft class. He is still playing at an incredibly high level. And so that was the hope, is to bring him in and find a way to secure his blind side so he doesn't tear his ACL one more time. And so, with that, I'm thinking, okay, this is a good opportunity for them to get that done and protect your investment, protect your quarterback. Well, instead, they go for Jamar Chase, the flashy weapon, the guy that you look at and say, hey, it's great. If your quarterback's standing, he'll be able to get him the ball, but hopefully he'll be up. But you pair him with T. Higgins, who's emerged as a big-time threat. You pair him with Boyd, who's been really good and been a steady presence over his time in Cincinnati. Now, all of a sudden, you have an elite 3 receivers. You got Joe Mixon, who's a running back, who's been really good, near the top of the NFL in rushing yards. And all these guys are under 25. And Jamar Chase has been remarkable. He's been remarkable. I don't know how you can give Rookie of the Year to anyone else other than him. I mean, I really don't. I mean, there's other guys that have played well, and I get it. But Jamar Chase broke the rookie receiving record, which his teammate, Justin Jefferson, broke last year in Minnesota. He broke it just 1 year later. And, we could talk about the extra game, but he broke it in 16. So he didn't need the 17th. He's only going to add to it now. And so with Joe Burrow and these guys, they're a force in the AFC. I know that, we want to overreact. And so very often, everybody has that big overreaction, as we watched Joe Burrow go crazy with Jamar Chase 2 weeks ago. And the overreaction was they're going to blow out the Chiefs. They're going to blow out the Chiefs, not blow out, beat the Chiefs because of how good they are. Chiefs come out, open up a can at the beginning, and they're on a drive. They're moving the football. They're having success. And I thought, okay, this is a snapback. This is more of what we saw with Cincinnati. Joe Burrow spins that thing on its head and does a great job in the second half as they battle back. And Cincinnati's defense did as well. Dark horse team to win the Super Bowl. Check out the odds. because I like Cincinnati as a team that could win a playoff game or two. And if you can win two, you can get to the AFC Championship. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. So keep in mind, Cincinnati ahead of schedule. Why? Because of Joe Burrow. All right, some rough news in the NFL as we get to celebrate Joe Burrow and all the successes that he has. Antonio Brown. I mean, this guy forces his way out of Pittsburgh, goes crazy, does some wild stuff as well with the Raiders, forces his way out of there. He has Tom Brady vouch for him to get him in there in New England. They bring him in, plays pretty well. Like usually when this starts to happen, the talent appears to fade. Still playing well, gets washed out in New England, and he's on the street. And Tom Brady goes to Bruce Arians last year, said, bring this guy, and we've got injuries. He's the guy that we need. And AB was a model citizen for the most part and played well, helped him win a Super Bowl. They brought him back. And Bruce Arians had experience with him in Pittsburgh. He knew exactly what he was getting, and he probably only knew it was about a matter of time before he exploded again. And it's unfortunate because AB, even at the age he's at right now, in his early to mid 30s, he's still a threat. He's still really good. The dude can still toast you in one-on-one coverage, which a lot of receivers at that age who aren't big physical guys. We're not talking about Calvin Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald, who are big-bodied receivers who can get into you and make contested catches. Antonio Brown's still scooting. He is moving, folks. Like he's still a tremendous athlete. And so it's unfortunate that on the sidelines, and for whatever reason, rips off his helmet, doesn't listen to Mike Evans, tears off his shoulder pads, throwing his gloves up in the stands, waving to people as the Jets as he walks out, has to get an Uber because there ain't no way that he's getting back on that team plane or on the team bus, driving around New York. They're Instagramming live and doing all this stuff together. I mean, that's bad. Like Antonio Brown, he's as impulsive as a child. I got a 5-year-old, man. 4 kids. 5-year-old is the youngest. And I was talking to a friend, like that's kind of how he acts. He's as impulsive as a child. He's a great player. I think a lot of guys like him when they're around him. He's a fierce competitor, but when you've got $1 million on the line for needing a handful more catches, about 50 more yards and another touchdown, and it's about $333,000 a piece. And they say, hey, they're trying to put you back in the game, but they're only quote putting you in when allegedly now when it was running plays. I can tell you this, you still got 1 more week to get some of that stuff. And I know for a fact that you won't get any of those incentives if you're not on the team. And so you could say the world's conspiring against you. They gave you your shot, like your 4th chance. Bruce Arians, BA, acquiesced to Tom Brady, and they brought you in. I don't know where he goes from here. I hope that he talks to somebody, gets the help he needs. He can't be that impulsive. He's got kids. He's responsible for other lives. Like you cannot be that impulsive. And that's the problem. Not at that age of your life. You can when you're younger, not when you have people relying on you and counting on you. And you're not only your family, but you're also in a football game where your teammates are counting on you to win and you walk off. I guarantee you Tom Brady wanted him on the field, wanted him out there, and he would have gone to bat for him. Antonio Brown doing something I've never seen. Talked to my dad who played 10 years in the league. I've never heard of anything like that. You got Devontae Davis kind of dipping out at halftime because he just said he couldn't do it anymore. And I understand that. Like, hey, you lose the edge. I can't cover him. I can't tackle. I've lost. Like, okay, I get it. But to make a spectacle of it like that, when you got Mike Evans, who's a Pro Bowler, talking to you, like a great receiver, who's like, wants you there. And he's the young guy in this equation. You're supposed to be a mature veteran. Hurts. It hurts a lot. Little bit of last NFL good news here before we get into some of the starters. Deshaun Jackson, I would say this is good news, playing for the Raiders now. People might have forgot where he's at if you're not following the Raiders closely. NFL, no fun league. He's got the John Madden cleats. They put in their tribute, painted on the side, his face, all this stuff, and the NFL won't let him wear them. He plays for the Raiders. John Madden just passed away. One of the most legendary, impactful men in the entire game of football with what he did. Very rarely, as I talked about prior, do you ever find somebody who's so universally liked? Let the guy wear the darn cleats. He plays for the Raiders, for heaven's sake. And it's John Madden. We're going to have a moment of silence for the guy, but you won't let a dude wear some tastefully done cleats? to honor a guy that just passed away, NFL, give him a waiver. Let him do it. Not the no fun league. I mean, Deshaun Jackson, a little wild too, but it's great. Let him do that stuff. Teams have made the playoffs in the NFL. Got some stuff locked up. You've got the Bucks, you've got the Eagles, you got the Colts. Their coaches have all come out, start them. They're going to play their starters. How much? Who knows? I think Bruce Arians, we're playing to win the game. Tom Brady probably wants to play to win the game. You know, even though they can't, the number one seed, Green Bay's got it iced up. All right. And there's this paradigm. You know, if you start guys, so get someone hurt, or maybe you're beat up, you don't look as good the next week. Well, you were tired, you're beat up, you didn't have all your weapons. You don't play some guys. All of a sudden, the next week you lose. It's rest versus rust, and you've lost your rhythm, you lost your groove. I'm a believer in playing guys. Don't be foolish. If you have guys who have some small injuries, get them healthy. But if you have guys who are healthy and willing, go get them out there on the field, especially if they're younger players. You need to keep the rhythm to keep it going. I've had bye weeks before. It never really worked out all that well. I'm a believer you keep that momentum rolling. That's when you can play some of your best games. If you have guys that need some time off, let them take it. But I think that overwhelmingly, especially now, the NFL is a momentum league. Keep that momentum. Let it keep rolling. If your dudes are healthy, get them out there, go play, even if everything is already determined for your situation. Coach of the year candidates. This is big time. I was just thinking about this the other day, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. You know, two guys pop in my mind already. One, as I was doing this, Zach Taylor with Cincinnati, hot seat. Now it's with the champion of the North. Bengals have a huge role reversal. Some people don't like him. He's mismanaged games. You know, there's different calls that he probably should have made, you know, whether it's clock management or specific play call. This cost his team some games. But what he's done with that young team and that young offense, maybe you give a lot of the credit to Joe Burrow, but he's in the running. But I think truly the guy, you know, is Mike Vrabel with what he's done. You know, you lose your star running back, Derrick Henry, the beast, and you have a little bit of struggles. You have some setbacks, but you've got a chance heading into the final week to be the number one seed. And if they secure that in Tennessee, I'm not sure how you select anybody else. You know, Bill Belichick's done a great job. Matt LaFleur winning 13 games 3 years in a row, done a great job. But Mike Vrabel, with what he's done in the difficult division that he is in the conference and going against the Chiefs and everything else, the fact that they've have the chance to secure that, that is remarkable, truly impressive. On to some college football. We had the CFP playoffs, the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl. Michigan, they thought they were there. I thought it was going to be close. 34-11 against Georgia. Didn't have anything. They didn't have anything. They didn't have anything for them. They got behind, and I was worried about this for them. They got in a chase game. They couldn't out Georgia. They couldn't do it. They didn't have the horses. Now, bringing in J.J. McCarthy in the second half, yeah, the Bulldogs were a little looser, but having that stronger arm in the element of the QB run, I think, is their solution going forward. And this is a little bit, I think, of what Ohio State got exposed to, you know, maybe in 2013. You know, they lose to Michigan State, so they don't go to the BCS National Championship. They play Clemson. You know, they get smoked. And, you know, you realize this guy's got some elite players. They're big up front. They've got some elite receivers. They're very physical and skilled. I think Michigan finally got a taste of that going out front. Ohio State, same thing happened to them against Clemson in 2016. You know, you lose sometimes, and sometimes you understand what you're going against. I don't think Michigan, while watching that game, looked like they were prepared for the speed and the size and everything that they saw, and even the intensity and the gravity of the game. I think it was just a little bit much and a little bit too quick and too soon for them to be able to overcome that. Stetson Bennett played really well, did a good job, looked good throwing the football. I'm anxious to see what it's going to look like against Bama because they're going to need his arm. A Georgia team had been front running all year. They got smacked, but give it up to Kirby Smart. They bounced back. It is a prideful team. Did a heck of a job playing against the Michigan Wolverines in the Orange Bowl. Cotton Bowl, Alabama, Cincinnati, 27-6. 1 point at 17-6. Alabama had muffed a punt. Cincinnati doesn't get it. Would have been a great opportunity to cut that thing to a score. You know, Cincinnati was overall outmatched. They didn't have the depth of players against Bama. Could Saban have maybe thrown it more? Possibly. But I think he was content to just hammer the ball with Brian Robinson. And Cincinnati, to their credit, That game felt closer than Michigan, Georgia. I mean, like I said, it was 17-6 and they get an interception. They're at midfield. If they go down and even get a field goal, you're within 8 points. You get a touchdown, heck, you go for two, maybe you're 3 points down. But Bama does what they do to everybody. They wear you down over the course of the game. You have to stay on the field on offense. Cincinnati's defense slowly just got overwhelmed, and they didn't let the dam completely break. 27 points to a team as good as Alabama. That's nothing, to shy away from. Maybe Saban could have put a little more on him, but the guy is an unbelievable coach. You look at what he did against Georgia, threw the ball all over the place, spread out their defensive line, wore them down. Against Cincinnati, didn't go with their corners on the outside. Kobe Bryant and Sauce Gardner, they're too good. They decided to run the ball and throw the inside. And when they threw it, they tried to get some max, some play action. The Cincinnati's defensive line, especially Myjai Harris, he was getting some pressure. So, yeah, we're just going to run the ball. We'll take 5, 7, 8 yards of crack. We'll just slowly matriculate down the field, keep your offense off of there, and that's how we'll wear you down. Because since we know that you guys can't go 20 deep on defense like we can. Nick Saban's remarkable. I can't wait to talk about what he's going to potentially do against Georgia and what's going to happen in that second round. Because I love part 2 of some of these matchups when you've watched a team like Bama who's done it one way one week and a completely different way the next week. Very impressive to see, because not all coaches can do that. We talk about it and everyone pretends like they're easy to adapt. Nick Saban's 70. A lot of people view him as a dinosaur, yet he keeps innovating and he keeps changing it up and getting it done. So a heck of a job right there for Nick Saban, and a heck of a job to me as well for Luke Fickell in Cincinnati. They proved that they belonged. There was no one else that was better than them. Heck, I think that they might have been able to beat Michigan, or probably would have. And this is just a season where I think there's 2 really good teams. I think Ohio State may have had a more competitive game with both of those schools. I don't know if they had been able to beat them, to outscore them, because defensively, I don't know if they were good enough to maybe slow either of those teams. But I think it may have been more competitive. But I think these are the 2 best teams that will be playing this year, and we'll get into it. On to the Rose Bowl. Holy smokes. Ohio State goes down early, 2 scores. They battle back. They're down 2 scores. It's 35-21 at halftime, for heaven's sake. Defense is getting shredded. And then there's apparently this legendary speech by DeMario McCall, a 6th-year corner out of Ohio who doesn't even really play. He played running back, receiver early in his career. And all of a sudden, the fortunes turn. And the defense steps up 10 points in the second half, 3 in the third quarter, 7 at the end of the game. Maybe if they don't knock out Rising, the quarterback, it's different. But they did. That's part of what happened. And injuries are ultimately part of the game. So they're able to get that done. And it's very impressive how the defense stepped up. But probably the most impressive thing of this, and everybody's talking about Jamison Williams leaving Ohio State, transferring to Bama, and how could you let this guy possibly leave? We had 2 guys who are probably they'll be top 40 picks, probably both first rounders, and Olave and Wilson, who hopped out. You have JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has been on a tear. The last 5 games, he's had almost over 900 yards receiving, 60 some odd catches, multiple touchdowns. He's been on fire the last half of the year. 347 on the ground or through the air. The litany of catches, I believe 15 catches, 3 touchdowns. He was unstoppable. And that's why, Ryan Hartline, we'll get Jamison Williams in there, but we got this guy too. Now they're going to fill it in, as you saw Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, that's right. Son of Marvin Harrison being in there. He's a pretty darn talented player, really stinking good. He has 3 touchdown catches. They've got some really, really talented receivers. Julian Fleming and Emeka Egbuka also go play. And in the return game and the receiving game, these guys were excellent. Very impressive. Very, very impressive. Now, what wasn't impressive is, as they come back and win, that was fantastic. CJ Stroud, don't want to dismiss him. He was great. Tommy Eichenberg, their linebacker, stepped up 17 tackles. These guys were phenomenal to watch, and they did a good job, especially in the second half after the defense got just destroyed early on. Now, one of their players that wasn't there, Marcus Williamson. Cornerback, nickelback, out of a school, Westerville and South and Central Ohio. I've always really liked Marcus. I found him to be a really nice guy. I worked pretty hard. It hadn't really worked out for him playing all that much at Ohio State, but this year he got a shot, played a lot of nickelback, in some big games. And, apparently, I mean, he didn't travel to the game. And maybe the coaches said, we're going to go with some younger guys in the Rose Bowl. Do you want to come and play some special teams? You're not going to play that much, but you want to be a leader. You came back. You said you were selfless and all these things. Well, apparently he didn't want to come. During the game, he's tweeting out about the exploitation at Ohio State. They're treating, especially when Urban was there, they're taking advantage of these guys, mostly black players, and hinted at racism. And it's during the game. So none of even the current team knows what's going on. But I will say this, I was happy to see other teammates or other former Ohio State players who played under Urban, who played with him or just right outside of him, come out and say, listen, this isn't true. When they racism there, it was hard, really tough. It's hard for everybody. And I was talking with Cardell Jones about this today. He's like, when guys, they say it's hard now and it makes them feel bad. He's like, all of a sudden, some of the black dudes now say it's racist. He's like, it's hard for everybody. And this was a guy, Cardell Jones. He's like, I made it as hard on myself as I possibly could early on at Ohio State. Like, but I never felt like anything I was getting that I really didn't deserve. I just didn't understand it at the time of how I was being treated. But I never felt like I was being exploited or there was any racism involved. And heck, now they have the NIL stuff. And so we can argue about coach guys getting paid from school and things like that happening. But at the end of it as well, you have the opportunity with your marketability to reap some of the reward back if you're good enough and talented enough to do it. So I saw that, and like, I like Marcus. It was bewildering to me. Obviously, me being a white guy, like, I can't put myself in his position. All I can do is talk to other guys who played around the same time or with him and try to understand if they had similar experiences or if they witnessed any of that. And to a man, all of them said no. And so to kind of throw the hint out of racism that existed, and that's why you feel like it didn't work out for you, that's just categorically untrue, and it's looking for excuses. And that hurts. It really hurts. And it's tough to see that, especially happening at my alma mater, but really to see that happening anywhere. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it's on the player, sometimes on the coach, and sometimes there's undertones and things are happening. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm just sitting here to say that just because it didn't work out doesn't mean that was the case. And that is what he was implying, and that was bad. Lastly, Sugar Bowl, Baylor 21, Ole Miss 7. Dave Aranda does a great job getting the victory. Matt Corrall gets knocked out of the game. He has the ankle injury, and you're sitting there, and it's like he came out with this impassioned speech beforehand, how he couldn't imagine opting out. He signed to play for Ole Miss. He's completing his obligation to them. He's finishing his season. He's finishing his career there. And not knowing Matt Corrall at all, I've never met the guy. But listening to him talk, watching him play through injuries all year, I don't think this will ultimately impact his draft status. I don't think it's going to be, super serious. And I always say that, and everyone says it's super serious when it's not serious when it's not your injury. He'll have to battle back from this stuff, and hopefully it's just an ankle deal and nothing too crazy, not something that requires serious surgery or anything like that. But I guarantee you, Matt Corral does not want your pity. He chose to play in a game that he loved with players that he respected at a university he chose to go to. He made that blatantly clear. And just listening to the way that he talks, when he seems like a guy that when he made the decision, he wasn't looking back. He wouldn't say, well, I went out and played, I got hurt, or I didn't play as well as I thought I would. And this is, ultimately why I'm hurt and hurt my draft status or whatever. No, you make the decision and you own all the results, good or bad. Could have played phenomenal, 400 yards and beat a great defense in Baylor. Didn't happen. He got hurt early in the game, and that stinks. It stinks, but you don't second guess it. And I guarantee you, Matt Corral is not second guessing it. He don't want your pity. He don't want your sympathy. He don't want my pity. He don't want my sympathy. He's a football player in an era where guys like to opt out, which is their right, and they can preserve their ability and their financial future. And I get it. They can do all of those things, but I loved seeing Matt Corral stand up for it. I'm hoping that he's not seriously injured. It doesn't look like it is that severe, but he don't want your pity. I promise you that. Well, that is the end of this edition of Carp's Corner. Can't wait to get into the playoffs, get to the NFL, the championship, some of the NFL playoffs, and all the things that are happening before too long. We'll have the NFL coaching carousel and the draft to talk about. can't wait to get into it with you.